So the BTK killer and Bryan Kohberger. Are there any similarities? And let's get into it if there are. I don't want to go too much into the BTK killer's actual killings because they're quite disgusting. So if you're unaware, BTK stands for bind, torture and kill, and the person who's known as the BTK killer is a man that goes by the name of Dennis Rader. So Rader was actually laid off from his job as an electrician in 1973 and shortly afterwards killed his first victims on January 15th, 1974. While his wife Paula was sleeping, Dennis Rader broke into the home of Ontario family and murdered every single person inside the house. The children, 11-year-old Josie and 9-year-old Joseph, were forced to watch while he strangled their parents to death. And it would be Josie that actually screamed out to her mother while watching her be strangled to death, "Mummy, I love you," before Dennis would actually grab and drag her down to the basement. Dennis would take 11-year-old Josie's arms and use them as a noose to hang her from the sewer pipe while he mashed to her dying. So Dennis's first victims were actually a family of 4. Now, he did leave 3 survivors, but they were never home at the time. And he also committed his first murder at the age of 28. Bryan Kohberger entered the home and is accused of killing 4 people, leaving 2 survivors. Unsure why he left 2 survivors or if 2 of the people that were murdered in this crime were actually a motive thrower. But Bryan, at the age of 28, still went ahead and murdered 4 people for his first victims. First victims being that we know of so far. The BTK killer would actually go ahead and choose random victims. Somewhat, I think Bryan Kohberger did the same too. They may have fit what he was looking for, but they may have been random to him. So Bryan Kohberger may have had a fixation where it was something to do a lot more with women than it ever was men, and his target would have been women. Reason being, he was in the Idaho area 12 times, wasn't actually just to look at the IDAHO4. It would have been to actually stalk the area to find his potential victims. BTK installed security cameras. What did Dateline just go ahead and tell us? Now, the information is alleged, so just take it with a pinch of salt. So Bryan Kohberger is actually accused now of going ahead and befriending someone. That someone was a female who one day went home. When she went home, a load of her stuff wasn't missing, but a load of her stuff was moved. She didn't ring the police, instead she rang her new friend, Bryan Kohberger. Now, he's being accused of coming over to the house and while trying to help, suggesting that maybe she put in security systems. Just like a few cameras or whatever to make sure that while she's out, whatever's going on inside the home, she can somewhat see. And it's somewhat alleged that Bryan Kohberger is the person that went ahead and fit this security system within the home. Just being a few cameras, I'm suggesting, not a full-blown security system. It's also alleged that Bryan Kohberger was able to, if close enough, be able to log into said security camera and watch himself what was going on in the home. So the BTK actually installed security cameras and Bryan Kohberger is being alleged of doing one of those. Just somewhat similar. Now, the BTK killer actually told his victims that he was going to help them before killing them. When 11-year-old Josie would actually ask him what he was going to do to her, he said something along the lines of, "I'm going to help you by putting you in heaven with the rest of your family." And the Moscow, Idaho surviving roommate claims that she heard something to the effect of someone saying, "Don't worry, I'm here to help you." Or, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." When the BTK killer, Dennis Rader, was asked for his plea of not guilty or guilty, in 2005, he stood silent. Which on the 22nd of May 2023, after 9 AM, Bryan Kohberger too would stand silent. Bryan Kohberger also studied under the Professor Katherine Ramsland. The Professor Katherine Ramsland also wrote books on the BTK killer. Bryan, having her as a professor, would have also studied the BTK killer. Not only that, apparently when the BTK killer was actually asked to go ahead and give some thought on Bryan Kohberger, he would go ahead and show remorse for the fact that he was inside solitary confinement, stating that in 2005 he himself was put into solitary confinement and understands what it's like. There we go, it's just some food for thought. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, then drop a follow. If you've got any comments, then please feel free to drop them in there.